This is the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.
You're inside Jamaica Magazine.
Encouraging the information flow, sharing the news and views you need to know.
We are building an informed Jamaica every day. Listening to what you say.
It's Thursday, February 11. Hi there, I'm Samantha Allen. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Jamaica Magazine. Coming up, Issues and Answers tackles the Kingston Urban Renewal Project. But first in the news, the Jamaica Debt Exchange Program continues to yield results. Government hoping to conclude Air Jamaica negotiations by the end of March and 6 fishing beaches being rehabilitated. The news in detail after the break.
I might stand on the corner, but me love life. I know wrong from right. So don't judge me how me look. I stand up for peace. And if we stand up for peace, peace must increase.
And now the news. The Jamaica Debt Exchange Program, JDX, continues to yield results. Yesterday, Bank of Jamaica Governor Brian Winter disclosed that so far, 97% of bondholders have decided to come on board. Under the program, government bondholders are being asked to exchange the old bonds for new ones with a lower interest rate and an extended maturity date. The exchange is expected to save the government around $42 billion in interest payments. The deadline is February 16. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has already disbursed $640 million to the Bank of Jamaica's account.
The agreement with the IMF paves the way for an additional $1.1 billion US from other multilateral financial institutions during the program period. These funds, together with the successful completion of their accompanying conditionalities, and I want to stress that, the funds together with the successful completion of the accompanying conditionalities are intended to return the economy to a path of sustainable growth.
Last week, the fund agreed to assist Jamaica with a $1.2 billion standby facility. And Jamaica has seen a decline in inflation. For the first 3 quarters of the current fiscal year, which ends in March, inflation fell to 8.8% from approximately 11% over the same period last year. In fact, inflation for the last quarter moved down to 2.8% from 3.1% level in the July to September period. At yesterday's press briefing, the BOJ governor gave reasons for the decline.
This decline in inflation for the quarter was largely due to increased supplies of some domestic agricultural items, weak domestic demand, and a stable foreign exchange rate. These factors partly negated the impact on the general price level of higher energy-related costs and increased costs of some short-term agricultural products and some household services.
For the March 2010 quarter, headline inflation is expected to be between 3.5 and 4.5%. This increase takes into consideration the impact of government's revenue measures and an increase in the prices of imported goods. For the fiscal year, inflation is projected to be in the range of 11.5 to 13.5%. Meanwhile, at the end of December 2009, there was just over $1.7 million in the net international reserves. That's a decline of $204 million relative to the end of September.
Notwithstanding the decline in the NIR, gross reserves represented 13.4 weeks of projected goods and services imports, and that was still above the international benchmark of 12 weeks.
The government is hoping to complete negotiations with Caribbean Airlines for the sale of Air Jamaica by the end of next month. In a statement to Parliament yesterday, Prime Minister Bruce Golding said the negotiations are well advanced. He says a non-binding letter of intent has been signed with a target date for completion by March 31, 2010. The government is selling the national carrier to get the multi-billion-dollar debt-ridden asset off the national budget. In the last 3 years alone, Air Jamaica has incurred losses of $31 billion. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has again addressed a proposal by the Jamaica Airline Pilots Association, JALPA, which wants to take control of the national carrier. Mr. Golding reiterated that JALPA missed the deadline to put in a bid, and any discussion with the group will be dependent on the outcome of ongoing negotiations with Caribbean Airlines. Prime Minister Golding says he will report to Parliament in due course on the outcome of the current negotiations with Caribbean Airlines. By October of next year, 6 fishing beaches in 4 parishes will have improved facilities. The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries is rehabilitating the infrastructure at Old Harbour Bay in St. Catherine, Calabash Bay and Black River in St. Elizabeth, Rocky Point in Clarendon, and the Negril and Savannah Lamar beaches in Westmoreland. The beaches were damaged in Hurricane Dean. The work is part of Improving Jamaica's Agricultural Productivity Project, IJAP. It's funded by a grant of $4.9 million Canadian dollars from the Canadian International Development Agency, CIDA. The Ministry of Agriculture is putting up $1.5 million Canadian dollars, while $134,956 Canadian dollars is being provided by the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation and Agriculture, IICA.
The scope of this beach rehabilitation covers new construction or upgrading of vending facilities, secure gear sheds, designated net mending areas, sanitary facilities, and very importantly, environmentally responsible waste disposal systems.
The IICA Jamaica representative was speaking at yesterday's groundbreaking ceremony at the Old Harbour Bay Fishing Beach. Construction work is expected to begin at all 6 beaches by early in 2011 and finish by October of that year. There are some 200,000 Jamaicans who rely on fishing for their living, but that livelihood is being threatened as the sector contracts. The IJAP program hopes to help reverse that trend. The project involves setting up mini greenhouses and 2 small-scale commercial greenhouses. 2 packing facilities will be built and artificial reef structures and lobster breeding shelters will be deployed. The fisher folk and their organization members are also being trained to practice more environmentally sustainable fishing practices. In the meantime, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries will be stepping up its activities to curb illicit fishing practices. Minister Christopher Tufton says while a significant number of Jamaica's fisherfolk use legitimate fishing practices, there are others who don't. He says information will be revealed in the coming months about measures to address the problem.
Because we're going to have to identify the 1 or 2 bad eggs in the lot. And we're going to first of all try to convince them to conform, to do the right thing. We're not here to run down anybody and lock up anybody. But if they don't, we're going to have to enforce the law.
The minister was speaking at yesterday's groundbreaking ceremony for the Old Harbour Bay Fishing Beach Rehabilitation Project. Minister Tufton says the ministry's ultimate aim is to work with the fisherfolk and help them practice a type of fishing that will sustain the availability of the Jamaican stock.
But some of us go out there with dynamite and we throw the dynamite over and stunt the fish, and it kill the big fish, the medium-sized fish, the small fish, the baby fish, the fish when not born yet, the reef where the fish breed on. Some of us go out there with bleach, toxic chemicals, and throw it in the water and stunt the fish. And the fish float on top, and you pick them up. And inside the belly of the fish is a toxic substance which eventually hurt you and other people. And it kills everything. Very, very simple. If you don't have the fish out there, it don't make sense putting this in.